Wow, we got a lot to cover for this one. 5 exercises we want to look at, and this deals with the glossary of usage out of this textbook. Most grammar books have a glossary of usage, so some of them cover slightly different words, but the biggies are going to be here. One thing I want you to keep in mind, some of these, you probably found this already, some of them are obviously right or wrong. Others, you maybe never realized that there was an issue between these two words, so it may be something colloquial, or meaning that one part of the country has this particular switch, like leave and let. It's kind of a weird one. We don't do that in Michigan. I don't know where in the country they would have that confusion, but at some point in standard English usage that has been an issue, so they've included it. And another thing you may notice, we see some repetition of this idea of direction, like if one thing is happening in one direction as opposed to another, like infer as opposed to imply, or bring as opposed to take. It has to do with the direction that a thing is happening. There's some commonality there, and you'll see some overlap. Okay, let's not waste any more time talking and jump into these. So we'll start with exercise 1, page 699. If you peeked, you saw it. It was among. Hang on, I gotta go there. Flip back, page 699. Okay, among, in between, it has to do with the number of things it's referring to. And this is more than 2 things, we presume, so it's among. These are all going to be capitalized because the default on my PowerPoint automatically makes it capital, so can't get around it. Or I probably could, I just don't feel like figuring it out. Okay, number 2 is as far as. All the farther is just not standard usage. A lot of these are informal versus formal, meaning you can use them in informal situations, but in formal writing primarily, they're frowned upon. A lot of these I have to be reminded of when I do this unit, because they're so sort of narrow and specific to standard English. We'll run across a couple of those. Number 3, the difference between affect and effect. In this case, we want the noun form, and only effect is a noun. Number 4, etc. means and others. This I think is others, or is it and? Hang on a second. Let's get this right. And etc. Yeah, and other things. Okay. And so you don't want to repeat the and. Et is Latin for and, so just etc. Number 5, burst and busted. Busted is just an informal use, so we want to stick with burst. And we'll assume that all of these situations are formal usage. Number 6, promise to bring or take, and this is bring because she's bringing it to me, coming from wherever she is to where I am. She's bringing it to me. Number 7, I don't know where it is. You just don't need the at the end of the construction. Where is it at? Right? It's just informal. I say that all the time, but it's informal. Please bring or take this note. So the direction is away from the speaker, so it's take. The difference between beside and besides has to do with the part of speech. We want not the preposition like next to, but other than, besides, with the s. Other than my aunts and uncles, all my cousins are coming. Okay, and then number 10, accepted versus accepted. In this case, we want something that's received, something that with an A is accepted. Those are often interchanged. I find that in kids' writings all the time. Those two are flipped around. The other one I find more often than any other is then and than, which I think you do run into in one of these exercises. All right, flip over to page 702, exercise 3. Of is not a helping verb. So if you've got it attached to should or would or could or might or may, You want to get rid of it. You want the word have, not of. The difference between discovered and invented, I think that's a pretty simple, straightforward one. This is just a vocabulary issue. In this case, we want discovered, uncovered, not made or created. Number 3, this is a verb form also that I don't think any of you are going to have issues with. Don't or doesn't. It's singular, so we want it to be doesn't. Number 4, this one's often switched around. I usually do well on that kind of test. Well is an adverb, modifying the verb do. Good is an adjective. We're going to see an exception to that, though, in just a minute. Our doctor advised my uncle to eat, oh, this is a good one, fewer or lesser. The difference between fewer or less has to do with countability. So if something can be counted, we want to use, as in the case of eggs, which can be counted, fewer. Less has to do with something that can't be counted. Like, and we tend to make the mistake only in one direction. For example, we might say less eggs, but we would never say there is fewer air in the room, or that there's fewer sugar on my cereal than on yours. Right? We would never put fewer with an uncountable thing, but we often put less with a countable thing. That tends to be where the issue is. Okay, number 6, he, singular, doesn't. Number 7, helping verb, right? Not of, but have. Of is a preposition only. Number 8, fewer or less. Okay, can snowstorms be counted in a year, in 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years? Sure they can. So we need fewer. Number 9, our teacher, one teacher, doesn't. Those seem really easy, but this is the part of the glossary that has that particular entry in it. That's why they've got it. And depending on your level of standard English, you might switch around don't and doesn't. I have students in school who I have to correct often. Number 10, same idea, discovered or invented. In this case, it is invented. Okay, next one, review A, same page. We'll just keep going. Now this one we have to get rid of something and replace it. So number 1, we cross off of and replace it with have. Number 2, get rid of discovered. Cellular phone system was invented. Number 3, effecting my powers of concentration. Now effect can be a verb. It's rare, but sometimes it can be a verb. If you affect some end result or some end change, but it's got to have to do with the very end of the process. What's an example? The legislator affected a change in tax law. So we brought about an end result. Again, you don't see it all that often, but in this case it's affecting, not effecting my powers. Influencing is another. If what you want is influencing, then it's affecting with an A. Number 4, we can't decide between this movie and that one. Between is the issue. It's 2 movies. That's correct as it is. Number 5, less. The word less. Is it countable? Yes, cookies is countable, so this is wrong. We've got to get rid of less and replace it with fewer. Number 6, we felt good because practice went so well. Okay, it's not really an exception, but there's something weird going on here. This is fine the way it is. Number 6 is correct. We felt good. You might say, well, isn't felt a verb that's being modified by good? Sort of. What really is happening here is felt is a linking verb, and good is being linked to the subject we with the verb felt. So an adjective is okay there. It doesn't have to be we felt well. And that just sounds weird. Nobody says we felt well. Number 7. What affect with an A? Well, that's wrong. It should be an E. Number 8. Why won't you accept my help? Accept would be like to get rid of my help or not count it somehow. You want to receive it, so that's accept with an A. Number 9. We stood beside the lake and watched the swans. Beside, no S. That's fine the way it is. And 10, did you bring flowers to your aunt? when you went to visit her in her home. We don't want to bring them, we want to take them, because we're going away, right? We take them. Okay, so there we go. Let's review. I got 2 more. Don't give up on me yet. Exercise 4 on page 705. The report must be on ancient Chinese history as my teacher directed. Oops. Okay, number 1 is as. It introduces, the official rule here is my teacher directed is a clause. It's not just a noun, so it wouldn't be like a preposition. You're never going to run into that rule in the ACT. Some of these are just kind of silly and nitpicky, but it's a good process to go through. It's a good exercise. That's what we'll call it. All right, number 2. For this kind, it's singular. Number 3. If I had seen them. Of, again, is never a helping verb. Number 4. The Chinese didn't have the technology. The Chinese, they didn't have the technology. I don't know anybody who talks that way, but apparently somebody does. So it's just the Chinese. Number 5. By 8200, the Chinese were using paper for writing and painting as if they had always done so. Introduces a clause. Number 6. I ought not forget. It would be a double negative if you hadn't ought. I ought not forget that the Chinese use paper. Number 7. In addition to these, plural, sorts is plural. Number 8, you could have knocked me off my chair. We want to drop the of in formal situations, but we would say that. Off of my chair. I jumped off of the porch. Okay. Here's that weird one, number 9. Let me tell you. I've never heard anybody say leave me tell you. If anybody knows where they say that, let me know. I'm curious. Number 10. The Chinese had taught themselves. Okay, one more. 709. Exercise 5. Here's the one that I see more often than any other thing. Don't use more paper than you need. All right, it's comparison. Then has to do with time. Number 2. Them dogs have impressive pedigrees. Nope, those dogs. Number 3. Manuel prefers this kind, singular. Number 4. It is only a short way. You don't need the S. Number 5. Tricia relaxed somewhat after she began to speak. This is another highly formal one where I would probably say 99 out of 100 times the word some, but somewhat is correct. Number 6. On the news, I heard that the game was called off because of rain. That. Okay, here's an explanation of why it's not where. Why it has to be that. Logically, it has to be. There's something called the noun clause. That's a group of words that act as a noun. On the news, I heard this. I heard this thing. What this person heard was a noun clause. So the noun clause has to start with that. If you have where the game was called off because of rain, you have something other than a noun clause, probably an adjective clause. So there you go. A little lesson on clauses. Number 7, please set. I wrote set. Oops. It's set. Set the books on the desk. You know what? A friend of mine walked in right when I was doing that one, and I think I messed up. Tim Spadowski is a friend. Anyway, number 8. Is she the player who? Right, we're referring directly to a person. So when you put in who or which or that, any one of those little pronouns, look at what comes right before it. If it's a person, it should be who. If it's a thing, make it a which or that, depending on how it's being used. Number 9, he would not have released the report unless he had first verified his sources. Similar to number 6, if we do want without, there's got to be a noun clause after it. Number 10, the rattlesnake on the trail spooked the horse, causing it to rise up. It rises. It does it under its own power. That's the difference between rise and raise. There are several verbs that work that way. You have rise and raise. You rise up, but you raise the book on your desk. Right? Sit and set. You sit, but you set something down. Lie and lay. You lie down, but you lay the pen down. Anyway, more bonus material for you. Okay, that's it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.